So in this video, I'm going to be talking about how I teach kids how to read. I've been teaching kids how to read for 10 years and it is absolutely my favorite thing to do. For a lot of people, it seems like a really daunting task and they're not really sure what they should be doing. They know that they should be maybe teaching letters and letter sounds and sight words, but it's so much more than that. You have to be really intentional with phonemic awareness skills. Phonemic awareness skills are a person's ability to identify, manipulate, and hear this individual sounds in spoken language. And what I've done is come up with a lot of really fun and engaging activities that I do with my students every single day until they master. It's a lot of modeling in the beginning, and then it's kind of like an I do, we do, you do over the course of the year. First, I'm showing them how to blend, how to segment, how to hear the beginning sound, how to hear the final sound. And then we kind of start to do things together and they do a lot of partner work. And by the end of the year, they're doing it all on their own and they are readers and they are spellers and it is amazing. So what I'm gonna do in this video is share with you all of the activities that I do over the course of the year. What I wanna point out before I get to those activities is that it shouldn't take up a lot of time. 5 to 10 minutes each day over the course of the year should be more than enough practice for your students to become these great readers and spellers. All of my students show amazing growth with these activities. I swear by it. I don't teach a school year without doing these activities. So here are 9 of the phonemic awareness skills that I work on with my students. We do 2 a week and keep rotating throughout the school year. They're rhyming, final sounds, segmenting, syllables, onset and rhyme, which is different from rhyming, middle sounds, initial sounds, blending, and phoneme manipulation. I'm going to show you a few examples from each one and talk a little bit about what you can do each day to improve your students' phonemic awareness skills, which will help them become strong readers and strong spellers. Rhymes are so important for students to master because it's really going to help them with their reading and spelling. When they're reading a word that has the same ending part as another word they know, they're going to be able to say, wait a minute, maybe this is a rhyme and I can use rhyming to help me read this word. If they're trying to spell a word and they see that ending part, they might be able to figure out how to spell it based on a rhyme they know. So I read them each of these little sentences and they have to come up with a word that rhymes. I saw a frog on a brown. Now they might want to say stick in a pond eating bugs. Especially your beginning of the year kinder students, and you just keep reminding them, well, we're rhyming. When we rhyme, we want to listen to the ending part. The ending part of frog is og. What has an og sound in it? Does pond have an og sound? And it takes a while for them to hear it. You're going to think that they are just messing around and not paying attention, but it really is hard for them to hear. So the more practice, the better. I saw a frog on a brown. You could even give them some examples like, okay, would pond work or would log work? What has an og sound to really get them listening for those sounds? This is one that takes a while over and over and over the course of the year to master. Coming up with rhymes for each card is always fun. Sometimes I'll pair my students up into groups and each group has a different card to come up with rhymes for. Towards the end of kindergarten and in the beginning of the year in first grade, when you get some writers going on, you can have them start writing down as many rhymes as they can think of, and then they can share them with another group. They can share them out with the class. So like 8, date, late, 4, score, door, 9, fine, mine. And once they get the hang of it, they love it and they just want to keep listing and listing and listing. And it's so exciting to see when they really grasp it. One other way, because you want to give them, exposure to the same skill, but in a different way so that it seems fun, it doesn't get boring for them, is saying that this ship has to go and it needs its cargo, which is a vocabulary word. And again, just telling them, okay, well, at, because some of them will say, oh, I want to take a bug on the ship. Okay, cool that you want to take a bug, but does it have an at sound? And I even point out, I hear an ug in bug. We're listening for an at sound. And just repeating that again and again and again until they really, really, really pick up those skills, and that's going to be amazing when they do. Working on syllables is really important for kids. It's important for them to hear the natural breaks in words. It helps them sound the words out. It helps them be able to break a word down and then put it back together again. So for example, we would say astronaut and hear that it has 3 syllables. This will also help them spell the word properly if they can hear the natural breakup. I love using their names when I can because they're most familiar with their names. So when they hear their names manipulated or we have to find the beginning sound or the syllables in their name, it makes it a little bit more relevant to them. It's always a really fun one to do, and they love clapping out each other's names, and they stand up when they hear their name. And then another one that I like to do is just give them as many opportunities as possible to hear as many different words as possible, like ant. A lot of them like to go and say that it has 3 syllables, and you really have to drive home the fact that you're just saying the word naturally and it will break up on its own. We're not segmenting yet. So none of these skills are easy, but I would say that beginning sounds is one of the easier ones. Like phoneme manipulation and rhyming are definitely on the harder end of these skills, but just making sure you really overstress the beginning sound, like monkey. What's the beginning sound in monkey? Really, start to point it out for them, and they start to hear these things really easily. Using these animals and pictures just makes it engaging and fun. It's words that they're familiar with. But also, if you have students that aren't familiar with these animals, or maybe even some ELL students that don't know the titles, I like to stand up there and point out what each word says, or I pair them up with a partner that can help them, and that's another great way to just put this print in front of them and have them have good visuals to build off of. Again, using their names as often as you can just makes it easier and relevant and more fun for them. I like to say their names without the first sound. So like my name's Naomi, I would say Aomi, and they think it's hilarious, and it really starts to make them think about the beginning sound and starts to really start to add in some phoneme manipulation there without them knowing that that's what they're doing. A really engaging hook that I like to do with my students is show them a really big word at the beginning of the year, like information or hamburger or vacation, something like that, that they're just so intimidated by. And let them know that after we start learning all of these skills, you are going to be able to spell this word by yourself. You're going to be able to read this word by yourself. But in order to do that, we have to practice all of these skills. You have to work with your partner and do the best that you can. And they get so excited. I like to do a lot of partner work, and I pair my students up kind of like a high, a middle, low, never a lower student that just needs more help. And have them kind of work with each other. I give both partners tasks, they check in with each other, and it's just really effective in my classroom. I like to use this badge system, so they all have badges. They're peanut butter and jelly. Peanut butter might be the students that are kind of with it. Maybe they already know their letters and letter sounds, so I'll group them together so that they're not really waiting for someone that needs a lot more help. And maybe a middle and low student can work together, and I try to keep those kids near me as well so that I can keep, like looking into their groups, seeing what they're up to, giving them a nudge while I know that some of my other students might be a little bit further along, and give them, a partner that can push them. Identify the final sound in a word is going to help a lot of your spellers. If you've ever worked with kindergarten or first graders, they're really good at getting like the beginning part of the word. They kind of forget about the middle, and every now and then they'll remember the ending, but focusing on final sounds will really help them listen for that last sound and make sure that they put it into their spelling and use it as a sound when they are trying to figure out a word that they are reading. And again, just like with beginning sounds, I like to really enunciate and stress that last sound. Putting up fingers is a great way for them to really pay attention to, beginning, middle, and end, and also gets them some practice on beginning and middle, even though you're focusing on the end. So I would say one finger up for the k in cat, one finger up for the ah, and then one finger up for the t, and then point to that last finger and say, what's the last sound you heard? T, t, t. Looking around the room, you've got to have some really good behavior management skills for this one, because letting them partner up and then go around the room calling out the sounds that they hear can get chaotic if you don't have, good control of the class. And then having a signal for them to come back and then share what they came up with. Again, my kids would go around with the dry erase boards, write down objects that they found, and then we would come back and have a discussion about it. And if they find the wrong thing, that's fine, because you can use those examples to teach them what an ending sound is not. So let's say they went and saw a door. No, that's not a good one because it ends with like a sound. Let's say that they went out and found a rug, and they came back and they said that the last sound was r. I'd say, well, r, g, g, g. Was the last sound r? Was it a r? And they all kind of laugh, and then it's just, again, more and more practice. And like I said earlier, you do an I do thing. In the beginning of the year, you're doing all of these examples on your own before they're getting to do anything. Then they're kind of doing it together, and then by the end of the year is when they're independent, they're reading, and they're really just able to do these things by themselves, even come up and teach the class. By the end of the year, they're coming up and teaching these things, and I'm just kind of sitting back, hanging and enjoying seeing like the amazing job that these kids are doing. So onset and rhyme are the phonological units of a spoken syllable, which really is just saying like the first part of the word and then the ending part of the word. This is another skill that's going to help them become better blenders and segmenters later on as those skills are worked on. Again, using their names to pay attention to how words can be broken up is a really great way to make it really stick with them, because a lot of times when my students try to ask for an example, they'll use their own name as an example. So being able to hear the first part and the ending part and putting it back together to make a word is harder than it seems, especially for your beginning of your kindergarten. So I would say, okay guys, we're gonna add some words together. Let's say we have f and then all, f, all. And I start out having a pretty big space in between, and then I try to start saying it closer and closer together so they can see that it makes a word. Looking at these pictures here, and the kids love looking at pictures, they love picking different ones to try out. I'll say, okay, look at the board. Which picture am I saying? Ask it. Ask it. And sometimes because they hear that they want to say balloon, bubble. And it's like, okay, I need you to listen to both parts. Listen again, ask it. And then I might say the syllables closer together so that they can be like, oh wait, she really is saying a word. She's not just saying random sounds. Again, it's an acquired skill. You'll work on it for a week at a time, and then you'll circle back to it multiple times throughout the school year until they've mastered those skills. These activities are most effective when they're focused on one or two at a time. So what I like to do is pick 2 activities per week, and we stay in that same skill all week. So we'll practice blending all week and segmenting all week. And then maybe the following week, we'll practice identifying beginning sounds and identifying ending sounds for the entire week. And then we just keep cycling through all of these skills with different and fun, engaging activities. And by the end of the year, they've got it. You're seeing that growth. They're proud of themselves. Parents are happy. And it's the most amazing feeling because you've given them a skill that nobody can take away from them. You've empowered them, and they are readers. Blending is one of the most important skills. You want your students to be so good at blending and so independent that when they are reading a book on their own and they stop to sound a word out, they can put all of those sounds back together on their own easily without having to come and ask you for help and without losing the flow or fluency of their reading. So I say, I'm thinking of a word, it has 3 sounds. Listen to the sounds and then guess my word. They love this one. Again, the pictures really make it fun for them. It really helps support other students that might be struggling. I do like to put or add in words that are not on the board as well, so that they're not only relying on the pictures and so they can really rely on the sounds, because that's what phonemic awareness is all about, manipulating, identifying, and hearing those sounds in the spoken word. So even though I love to have the visuals to support my learners, having them strictly rely on what they can hear is really what's going to help them the most. So sometimes I let them know like it's going to be something on the board, or maybe it's not. And here's a challenge one, it's not on the board. And they love to try to figure those out. Blending sounds together, again, it's an acquired skill. Make sure you have patience. You're going to be saying these words and thinking like, surely you can hear what I'm saying. And they really can't until they can. So just practice, practice, practice. You modeling, doing it yourself, giving them the opportunity to practice with a friend. And then when they master it, letting them show how they can do it on their own just really builds their confidence and helps to develop them as readers and as spellers. Because the same thing, if they are going to be spelling, for them to be able to say a word, say all of the parts, kind of segment it, and then blend it back together into the word that they're spelling, it's going to help them be able to write that word down. Something else that really is effective in my classroom is trying to find some sort of game or video or some fun little thing to add on to the skill that we're doing. For example, if we are working on rhyming for the week, I will go to YouTube, find a rhyming video, and play that as kind of a warm-up so that they know rhyming can be fun. You can think about this song when you hear rhyming, and then we start practicing the skill. We also might try to do a rhyming game. I try to use their names a lot. Just try to make it as fun as possible and always let them know the purpose. Like it might seem silly, this might seem weird, it might seem like kind of odd. We're doing this so that you can become a stronger reader. Segmenting. Segmenting is the other skill in addition to blending that I really feel when kids have these two down, then they're on their way. Like they're more than halfway there to being a great reader and speller. It's when they are able to break the word down into sounds, not syllables, but each sound that they hear. Like skate, for example, wouldn't be sk-ate or just skate. They need to hear the s-k-a-t. They need to hear 4 different sounds in that word. If they were doing flag, it's not just flag. They need to hear the f, the ul from the l, the a, and the g. These are tricky. It's so tricky. Model, model, model. Give them time to practice together. Write the word down. Show them why it has those different sounds, and just make sure they get practice hearing it over and over and over again. This activity is another one where you need to make sure your behavior management is on point, because I like to trust my students with dice, or just one die for each group of students, and they roll it and they have to say the sounds in each word. As you're walking around monitoring groups, make sure they're not doing syllables. Make sure they're not doing onset and rhyme. For example, in row 1, there's a fox there. Make sure they're not just saying ox, and you can even tell them, oh wow, you did the onset and the rhyme, but we're doing segmenting. You need to say each sound. It is ox. There's actually 3 sounds in that word. If they were doing the pool, ul. That again, if you can already tell, is going to help them become stronger spellers. When they can break a word down like that, they can write down every sound that they hear. Star, not just st-r. They need to break apart that blend, even this t, and hear that. The students that can hear that, you can already tell, like, okay, you're going to catch on to this really quick. If you can break apart blends that quickly, like dr, like drum, dr, 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 that's so tricky for students to do. So when they can start breaking apart blends, I always let them know, like, wow, that's such a cool skill that you're able to do. Like, you're almost like the best reader and writer that you can be. Keep going. So all of the activities that I'm showing you, I do during whole group. I have a board that I project these activities on. I make sure that my students have whiteboards and markers so that they can write what they need to write or draw pictures, whatever they need to do to communicate with their partners better or show me their answers. And it's just this really fun, interactive thing. I pass out the boards and markers at the beginning of my whole group lesson because everything that I do is really interactive with my students, so they already have them out. That's not time consuming in my classroom at all. When we do the activities, if it's like find the beginning sound, sometimes I might have them write it down. Sometimes if I don't have the time for all of that, they just tell their partner. But it's just a really, really great way for them to really get involved. And anything they write, they're going to remember better. So I always love making my students write it down. And even if they can't write, make a squiggle, draw a picture, do whatever you can that, kind of connects what we're learning to your brain. For identifying the middle sounds, I like to give my students CBC words that have very clear, cut, and dry beginning, middle, and ending sounds. I like to let them use their fingers to show the first, middle, and last sound. Or sometimes we might even tap our arms, tap our shoulder when we say the first sound, tap our elbow when we say the middle sound, and tap our hand when we say the last sound. And then we focus on, what was that middle sound that we just said? For example, hen. We would say N, hen. What was the middle sound? And point to our middle finger or point to our elbow that we were just tapping. This is going to help them when they're sounding out words to make sure they hit that middle sound and so that they can blend it back together. And also when they're spelling, a lot of times, like I said before, kids will mess up that middle part and it just kind of all like smushes together in like the beginning and last sound, and they kind of muddle the middle part. But being able to identify what they're hearing in the middle will help them spell what they're hearing in the middle of the word. See, and trust me, these activities might be like, what are you doing? My first year that I did it, it was like, how is this going to help my students learn how to read? And trust me, when it all comes together, you've got readers, and it's beautiful. Phoneme manipulation is one of my favorite things to teach. It's also, in my experience, in my opinion, the hardest skill for students to acquire. It's when they're able to take any of the sounds and change them or add them to something else or delete them. So they have to have a really good management of all of the other skills to kind of use all of them to make this one work. Again, using names is really helpful. Saying their name with a different beginning sound, or taking off a beginning sound, or taking off an ending sound. Little games like that are fun, and it helps them practice these skills. When they are able to manipulate phonemes, I know I have a fantastic reader and speller on my hands, because they've really begun to grasp what it takes to manipulate and identify sounds if they can do this skill right here. I also noticed that students that can do this early on are usually some of my strongest readers. So for this skill right here, changing sounds, take off the ending sound. So bat. So telling them to take off the t. So I'll say bat, bat. Take off the t. And a lot of times they say tab, or they'll say tat. And it's like, nope, at. So that's where we use segmenting. Take off the t. That's where we're going into final sounds. And they're like, bat. And that's where like blending comes in. Okay, we're going to blend those words, but without the t sound. It's really, really tricky, but really fun to practice and really amazing when they get it. Changing sounds to make a new word. Like if we were doing the pool, change the p to a k. That's them having to segment that word into a p and then a ool, or actually do an onset and rhyme into p, ool. Isolate the beginning sound and then change it to a k to make cool. So tricky to do, but when they get it, they love it. I love seeing them work with their partners trying to figure it out. And then when I go up and show them, they high five each other, they congratulate each other, or they say, you know, better luck next time if it was a little bit tricky for them that time around.
Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed learning about the activities that I do in my classroom, and I hope that you're able to find some of them useful. You can follow me on Instagram at Read Like a Rockstar. Bless you. And leave a comment below if you'd like.